In this video, I'll build an ecosystem for fish, shrimp, and snails with a tunnel that leads into a cave system. It works surprisingly well, so stick around and we'll go back to the beginning. I started out with some parchment paper and this old piece of foam that I know is about the same size as the tank. Next, I'll use these boxes to make a mold. I'll create the ceiling of the cave with this spray foam that is aquarium safe. The plan is to just make a square and trim it as needed to fit into the tank. During this process, I think I lost a couple million brain cells because the fumes coming off this were horrible. 24 hours later, it's dry and ready to be removed from the mold and cut to shape. Surprisingly, it only takes one firm slice to get through the mold. After cleaning it up a little bit, it looks great, but now we have to see if it fits into the tank. When I put it into the tank, it fits exactly how I want it to, pushing against the walls and holding itself in place. But I still have yet to turn this into a cave. To start this process, I'll glue this large piece of driftwood as the centerpiece and support, and then I'm going to add in some thin driftwood for some more depth. Using this aquarium safe silicone, I'll lock everything into place. Then a quick snip of this longer piece of driftwood to make sure everything fits. Next, I'll add in the light to reduce some of the glare on the footage, and also add in our cave system. Now I'm going to cut a hole in the foam to create our entrance into the cave. Off camera, I cleaned it up so it didn't look so square. Now I'll just take some aquarium safe super glue and one by one add in some small pebbles to create the cave entrance. For the floor of the cave, I'll be using some black sand. Now that the cave is fully complete, I'll add everything in and seal it to the aquarium with some silicone. After that, it's time to work on the upper portion of the tank. I'll start with some sand and spread it around with this aquascaping tool. I quickly add another layer of pebbles around the cave entrance to keep any sand from falling in. I had this piece of driftwood with a couple plants glued to it from one of my older aquariums, and I thought it would look perfect for this build. Now that the hardscape is fully complete, it's time to fill the tank with water. If you look closely, you can see sand leaking through the foam into the cave, so off camera I had to redo the entire build. I only say this because if you're trying to recreate this at home, I want to urge you to make sure all the holes, even the tiny ones, are sealed tightly with silicone. Now it's time to add in some finishing touches, like our heater, and some beneficial bacteria from a filter cartridge that came from an established tank of mine. I'll put in a few drops of ammonium chloride to help jumpstart the cycle by feeding the beneficial bacteria. And for the final touch, I'll sprinkle in a few small pebbles to add some more depth to the tank. After that, the build is complete and I'll leave it here to cycle for some time. After about a week, it's time to add in our cave light. I'll be using a spotlight so that I can check things out and turn it off as needed. The water parameters are looking good, so we're going to add in 6 tiny snails to get some motion in the tank. They're in a hurry to explore their new home, quickly darting in all different directions. The smallest one takes a liking to the glass, while 2 others in the distance head for the cave. These snails reproduce super quickly, so I have no choice but to introduce an assassin snail. He gets this name because he likes to eat other snails. He doesn't take long to go after his first meal, the largest of the snails. It seems he wants to set the precedent that he's in charge. But the large snail isn't going down without a fight. He shows the assassin snail who's faster and takes off, climbing one of the branches to safety. On day 11, I realized I need to add in a bridge from the bottom to the top of the cave so that our creatures can climb out easier. I'm using this piece of wood with Christmas moss on it for this. I think the moss adds a nice pop of color into the cave. On day 15, it's time to add in some orange dream shrimp. I drip acclimate them so that they can get used to the new tank water, and about 30 minutes later, it's time to put them in. They all swim off quickly to check out the tank and look for food. This one's pretty neat because he has red spots on his body. Eventually, one of the shrimp finds his way to the cave entrance. At first he seems nervous, but then takes a leap of faith, instantly being rewarded with some delicious moss to graze on. Then one of the others follows suit, inspired by his brother's bravery. In the ceiling of the cave, the assassin snail waits patiently for a snail to stroll by. Meanwhile, at the surface, 2 shrimp are playing in the current from the filter. Now it's time to turn off the cave lights and let the shrimp settle into their new home. On day 18, it's time to introduce our first fish. These are strawberry rasboras and they're super tiny. I put a dime underneath the container so you can see how small they really are. When it's time to introduce them to the tank, they seem a bit shy, not wanting to leave their group, which is very understandable because of their size. I can tell these guys are stressed from their long day of being in a bag because they immediately dive into the cave where it's dark and less stressful. Once in the cave, they start to explore and eventually come across the shrimp. I don't like to leave the tank lights on when adding fish into a new tank, so I'll turn them off and let these guys relax and settle in. On day 20, we'll be introducing our final 3 inhabitants, 3 sparkling gouramis. These guys are super shy, but love darker areas, so I figured they'd be perfect for the build. These guys are really shy, but one by one they swim out of the net, and then immediately one dives into the cave. He seems pretty stressed out, so I turn off the lights in the cave so he can relax. I decide it's probably best to just turn off all the lights and let them settle in for the night. The next day I can tell everyone's a lot more comfortable and also hungry, so I'm going to drop in some bloodworms. It doesn't take long for the shy gourami to smell the food and come out of the cave to check it out. Once he sees the worms, he can't resist eating one that's almost the same size as him. The other fish don't seem to have good eyesight, so I stir the worms around to help them find the food. Eventually this guy finds and attacks a worm. I think he might have bit off more than he can chew though. After seeing this, one of the smaller rasboras decides to go for a smaller piece. The shrimp are a bit more high maintenance, and I have to convince them to eat the worms by hand feeding them. I don't think they'll doubt me anymore though. After everyone gets a good meal up top, I drop a few worms to the cave where the rest of the shrimp finish them up. This build took a lot of time and money, so if you made it to the end, please subscribe, drop a comment, and maybe share it with a friend if you enjoyed the video. It really helps the channel out a lot. Thanks so much for watching, and let me know what you want me to build next. Have a great day.